I called my husband a friend in front of a waiter, and now he wants a divorce. Hey Reddit, first-time poster here, but a long-time lurker on this app. I never really thought I'd be the type to share my personal life on here because, honestly, I've always kept my problems private. But here I am, typing this out because I feel like I'm in a real dilemma and I don't know who else to turn to. I'm really, really hurt, confused, and scared right now. I fear I might be on the verge of losing my marriage over something that, at the time, I thought was a small joke. In hindsight, I realize how wrong I was, and I see now that what I said was incredibly disrespectful to my husband. I just didn't think it would blow up like this. I'm hoping and praying he can forgive me, but I'm not so sure anymore. My name is Veronica, and I'm 34 years old. My husband, Richard, is also 34. We've been married for about 4 years now, and for the most part, it's been amazing. Richard is truly the best man I've ever known. He goes out of his way to make me happy, always puts my needs above his own, and has the kindest heart. He's the kind of man that every woman dreams of marrying. Richard is an amazing person, and I think I really took him for granted. He's the kind of man who makes life easier just by being around. You know, the kind of guy who always has a solution for every problem, big or small. He's patient, understanding, and thoughtful in ways that make me feel safe and cared for. He remembers the little things, like my favorite flowers, or how I like my coffee, and he always knows how to cheer me up after a bad day. But I think, somewhere along the way, I started to take all of that for granted. I got too comfortable in the idea that Richard would always be there, no matter what. I stopped appreciating all the little things he does to make me happy, and I stopped considering how my words or actions might hurt him. That's what makes this situation so much worse. I didn't mean to hurt him. It wasn't intentional. But now, looking back, I see how dismissive and careless I was. And the worst part? I didn't realize how deeply I had hurt him until it was too late. The thing is, I started to grow bored. I hate admitting it, even to myself, but it's the reality. I'm not saying it's Richard's fault, because it isn't. He's done absolutely nothing wrong. He's been the same loving, thoughtful husband he's always been. Someone who would move mountains to see me smile. And yet, despite all that, I kept craving something else. I wanted something different, something new, something fresh. Our life together was safe. It was steady. And while I knew those were good things, great things even, I couldn't help but feel like something was missing. It wasn't that Richard wasn't enough. It was that I wanted more. I wanted to feel alive in a way that had nothing to do with the life we'd built together. At first, I fought against it. I told myself it was just a phase, that these feelings were normal and would go away after some things. I reasoned that everyone goes through periods of restlessness in a long-term relationship, and it didn't mean anything was wrong with us. I reminded myself of how lucky I was to have Richard, how good our life was, how much he loved me. But the more I tried to push those thoughts away, the stronger they became. I'd catch myself daydreaming about things I knew I shouldn't, about strangers whose faces I couldn't even clearly remember, about the many possibilities that were just outside the boundaries of my marriage. I started imagining what it would feel like to be someone else's affair partner. Even then, I tried to resist. I really did. I buried myself in the routines of our life together. I hoped the monotony would dull the ache for something new. I poured myself into our home, picked up hobbies, even suggested we try new things together, spontaneous weekend trips, dance classes, anything to reignite the fire I felt slipping away. But nothing worked. The harder I tried to convince myself to stay content, the more suffocated I felt. It wasn't Richard. It wasn't us. It was me. And then slowly but surely, those feelings started seeping into how I treated him. At first it was subtle. I hate myself for saying this, but I started to see him not as the man I loved, but as someone holding me back. And instead of dealing with those feelings honestly, I let them fester. That's when I began to test him. I didn't mean to at first, but I found myself pushing him in ways I knew would hurt him. I wanted to see how far I could go before he'd fight back, before he'd tell me I was wrong. But Richard never did. He always stayed calm, always gave me the benefit of the doubt, even when I knew I didn't deserve it. I knew Richard. He's a traditional man through and through, the kind who believes in loyalty, trust, and commitment above all else. Those values aren't just words to him. They're the foundation of everything he does. It's why he married me, why he works so hard to make our life together stable and happy. And it's why I knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that if I ever brought up something like exploring an open marriage, or worse, acted on the thoughts that had started creeping into my head, there would be no coming back from it. Richard wouldn't forgive me. He wouldn't understand. I would destroy him, and I knew it. And yet, instead of confronting those feelings head on, or doing the right thing by talking to him openly, I went about it in the worst, most cowardly way imaginable. I started looking down on him. It wasn't intentional at first. It wasn't like I woke up one day and decided to be cruel. But little by little, it crept in. I don't even know when it started. Maybe it was the first time I caught myself daydreaming about someone else's touch. Or maybe it was the first time I felt a twinge of irritation when Richard kissed me goodnight. All I know is that those feelings, restlessness, boredom, frustration, started to seep into how I treated him. At first, it was subtle. I found myself growing impatient over things that never used to bother me, like the way he always double-checked the locks before bed, a habit I used to find endearing because it showed how much he cared about our safety, or how he insisted on folding the towels a certain way, as if it really mattered. These little quirks that once made me smile now grated on my nerves. But it didn't stop there. Before I knew it, I was nitpicking everything about him. His jokes, ones that used to make me laugh until my stomach hurt, suddenly seemed corny and repetitive. His stories, which he loved to tell with so much enthusiasm, felt like reruns I didn't have the patience for. Even his affectionate gestures, like surprising me with my favorite coffee or leaving sweet notes for me to find, started to feel predictable. I knew how wrong it was. I knew that the problem wasn't Richard, it was me. But instead of addressing my feelings honestly, I let them fester. I let that resentment build up until it spilled over into my actions. Like I said before, it wasn't deliberate at first. I didn't wake up one morning and decide to hurt him, but I found myself pushing him in ways I knew would sting. I'd make snide comments about his habits, belittle his opinions and conversations, or dismiss his efforts to make me happy. Part of me wanted to see how far I could push him, how much he'd take before he finally called me out. But Richard never did. No matter how unfair or cruel I was, he always stayed calm, always gave me the benefit of the doubt. He'd look at me with those kind, understanding eyes, as if he was trying to figure out what was wrong so he could fix it, as if my coldness was just a phase he had to weather. And that only made me feel worse. Because the truth is, I didn't deserve his patience or his kindness. I didn't deserve him. And yet, even knowing all that, I couldn't stop. I kept pushing, kept testing, kept trying to provoke some kind of reaction, something to justify the way I was feeling. But Richard never faltered. He just kept loving me, even when I made it nearly impossible. I know it's ironic that I'm finally talking about this and admitting my fault, especially because back then, I refused to take any accountability for my actions. I always had an excuse. I told myself, and anyone who called me out, that it was just him overreacting. Whenever someone criticized me, I brushed it off as them not understanding the situation or being overly dramatic. But the truth is, it takes the real fear of losing something you suddenly realize is incredibly precious to finally open your eyes and acknowledge your faults. Looking back, I can see how horribly condescending and disrespectful I was toward Richard, both in private and in public. It wasn't just one thing, it was a pattern, a build-up of little actions that, on their own, might not have seemed like much, but together, they painted a picture of someone who had completely lost sight of what mattered. In private, I would criticize his interests, treating the things he loved as trivial or unimportant. If he spent time on a hobby that brought him joy, I'd dismiss it as a waste of time. I belittled his contributions to our home and our life together, nitpicking instead of appreciating the effort he put into everything. And when he opened up to me about his emotions, his struggles, or his day, I didn't listen with the compassion he deserved. Instead, I dismissed his feelings as if they didn't matter, or weren't valid enough to warrant my attention. I was even crueler when it came to how I saw him physically. I mocked his appearance, pointing out things I used to find endearing and turning them into punchlines. Even when he tried to be romantic or do something sweet for me, I barely acknowledged it. Or worse, I criticized it for not being enough. His affectionate gestures, the kind that used to make my heart swell, started to feel predictable to me, and instead of cherishing them, I ignored them completely. Then there were the times I challenged his decisions, whether it was something as small as a suggestion for dinner or as significant as a financial plan. I found ways to undermine him. I'd question his judgment or insist that I knew better, all while making him feel like his opinions didn't hold weight in our relationship. I was so wrapped up in my own restlessness, in my need to chase something new and exciting, that I didn't see how much damage I was doing. I took his patience and love for granted, and tested the limits of what he could endure. And yes, I was condescending and disrespectful everywhere, even in public. I can't even count the number of times I embarrassed Richard in front of his friends. I now realize how humiliating it must have been for him, and yet I never stopped to consider it at the time. I would undermine him at social events in ways that made it clear to everyone in the room that I didn't value him the way a wife should. I would correct him in conversations, as if he didn't know what he was talking about. It wasn't even about being right. It was about making sure he looked wrong, about asserting some kind of superiority over him. If he shared something personal or interesting, I would find subtle ways to diminish it, either by downplaying its importance or shifting the focus back to myself. And when others praised his achievements, I would ignore them or brush them off entirely, as though they didn't matter. Worse still, I would flirt with other men right in front of him, fully aware of how hurtful it was. I told myself it was harmless, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. I knew it was a betrayal of his trust, but I kept doing it, craving the attention and excitement I thought I was missing. I would deliberately spend time with other men, laughing too loudly at their jokes, leaning in just a little too close, all while pretending it was innocent fun. I even left him out of conversations entirely. At gatherings where we should have been a team, I would isolate him, turning my attention to anyone but him. I'd talk over him or shift conversations away from topics he enjoyed. And when I did include him, it was often just to point out something I thought he had done wrong, or to make a sarcastic remark at his expense. Looking back, I can see how all of these things must have chipped away at his confidence and his sense of worth. He was always so kind, so patient, trying to be a good husband even when I was doing everything I could to push him away, and still I didn't stop. I let my selfishness and restlessness take over, and in the process I disrespected the man who had done nothing but love me. It's one of my deepest regrets. So why am I making this post? Well, a few nights ago, Richard and I went out for dinner. It was supposed to be a simple, fun evening, just the two of us, a chance to reconnect after the tension and distance that had been growing between us. Richard had been the one to suggest it, and I knew he was trying to salvage whatever was left of our relationship. I should have taken it as an opportunity to show him that I cared, that I wanted to make things right. Instead, I let my impulsive, thoughtless side ruin everything. The evening started off fine. We got to the restaurant. The atmosphere was warm and inviting, and I could tell Richard was making an effort to keep things light and pleasant. But then the waiter came over. He was undeniably attractive, and instead of just noticing it and moving on, I let it get to my head. When he addressed us as a couple, I don't know what possessed me, but I immediately corrected him, telling him we weren't. I saw the waiter's confusion, his awkward apology before he walked away to take our order. It should have been a wake-up call, a moment to realize I had crossed a line, but instead I just brushed it off like it was nothing. I didn't even stop to look at Richard's reaction. When the waiter left, Richard confronted me. He looked hurt, more than I had ever seen before, and it was like a punch to the gut. But instead of apologizing right then and there, I doubled down. I kept telling him it was just a joke, that he was overreacting. It was such a stupid, childish thing to say, and yet I kept saying it, trying to downplay the situation and avoid accountability. Richard wouldn't listen, and I could see his patience wearing thin. It was as though all the little wounds I had inflicted on him over the past months had finally reached their breaking point. He didn't yell or cause a scene. He just stood up, looked at me one last time, and walked out. I was stunned. For a moment, I just sat there, unable to process what had happened. Then it hit me. He had left me there at the restaurant alone. He had never done anything like that before. No matter how bad things got, Richard was always the one who stayed, the one who tried to fix things, and now he was gone. The rest of the night was a blur. I don't even remember finishing my meal or how I got home. All I know is that his absence hit me harder than I ever could have expected. It wasn't just about the dinner or the waiter. It was about everything I had done to push him away. For the first time, I started to wonder if I had finally pushed too far. When I got back home that night, Richard wasn't there. At first, I thought maybe he just needed some space, that he'd come home later to talk things over. But he didn't. Not that night, not the next day. Days passed, and I felt this growing sense of dread. I kept telling myself he just needed time to cool off, but deep down, I knew something was seriously wrong. I could feel the weight of my mistakes crashing down on me, and I didn't know how to fix it. By the third day, I couldn't take it anymore. I tried calling, texting, anything to reach him, but there was nothing, no reply, no answer. I was completely shut out. I felt like I was losing him, and I had no idea how to stop it. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Richard came home. But it wasn't the reunion I had been hoping for. He wasn't angry, he wasn't shouting, but his words hit me harder than any argument ever could. He told me it made no sense for him to stay in his own house when I was at fault. He said he couldn't live with someone who had disrespected him so openly, not just in private, but in front of others too. And then, as if those words weren't enough to break me, he told me to leave. I was numb. I couldn't even process it at first. I kept asking him why, kept pleading for him to at least let me explain, but he wouldn't listen. He just said that he couldn't be with someone who had treated him the way I had, and then just like that, he kicked me out. I don't even remember how I got to my parents' house. Everything felt like a blur, and I was left there, sitting in their living room, trying to piece together what had just happened. I had never seen Richard like that before. The man I loved, the man I had spent so many years with, had reached a point where he couldn't even bear to be in the same house as me. It was all my fault, and I couldn't take it back. It's been 2 weeks since that night, and things have only gotten worse. I've tried everything to make it right. I've sent him messages, apologized over and over, begged him to come back home. I've cried, I've apologized again, and still, he won't budge. He's closed himself off completely, and the worst part? Now, he's talking about divorce. He said he doesn't know if he can ever trust me again, that he doesn't know if he can live with the person I've become. I'm in complete panic mode. I've never felt this helpless in my life. Richard is everything to me. He's been the one constant in my life, the one person I could always count on, and now I'm at risk of losing him forever. I've destroyed the trust we built over years, and I don't know if there's anything I can do to repair it. He won't talk about reconciliation, he won't let me in, and it feels like I'm just fading further away from him with every passing day. I don't want to lose my marriage. I don't want to lose him. But no matter how many times I apologize, no matter how many gestures I make, it doesn't seem like anything is working. I'm terrified that I've pushed him too far, that the damage I've done can't be undone. And now, every day, it feels like I'm slowly losing him more and more. How do I fix things? I don't want to lose my marriage. Update. Hey, Reddit. Wow, I really wasn't expecting the kind of criticism I've received on here. I know I deserve it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to deny or deflect my responsibility in all of this. I get it. I messed up. I'm not some saint, and I'm fully aware that I am at fault for everything that's gone wrong. It's all on me. I've been a shitty person, and there's no getting around it. I know that. I know I messed up in ways that can't be easily undone. I have no excuse for what I've done. I've been terrible, and I get it now more than ever. But please, I'm only human. This was a huge mistake, and the weight of it is killing me. I wish I could come back here with a happy update, but the truth is things are still really bad. Richard is still angry, and he's still saying he wants a divorce, and it feels like he's just done with me. There's no turning back for him, and I can see it in his eyes. His mind is made up. He says he's tired of being ridiculed, tired of feeling disrespected, tired of me taking him for granted, and I can't even blame him. He's right. I've hurt him in ways that I can't take back, and now, no matter how much I beg or apologize, he's pushing forward with the divorce. He told me that he's done, that he's not going to continue being in a marriage where he's constantly disrespected. He doesn't want me near him, near his life. He doesn't want me seeing his son. He's completely closed off, and no matter what I do, I feel like I'm just making things worse. I've tried, I really have. I've begged his parents to talk to him. My parents have stepped in trying to help, but it doesn't matter. No one can get through to him. Our friends, they're all on his side. They all see it from his perspective, and they all think he's right. They keep saying that he tried. He tried to talk to me, tried to make things work, and I just kept pushing him away. And they're right. I was so blind to what I was doing. I never saw how much I was pushing him to his breaking point until it was too late. Now I feel like I'm losing everything. The life we built, the love we had, it's all slipping away from me. I don't know what I would do without Richard. He's been my everything, and now it feels like I'm about to lose him for good. I'm so scared. I don't want a divorce. I don't want to lose him. I know I've screwed up, but I love him. I love him more than anything. Today he came over to my parents' house to drop off the rest of my stuff. It was like he was just closing the door on us for good. There was no emotion, no explanation, just him doing what he thinks is best for him. And now I'm sitting here, knowing that I don't have much time left before he completely shuts me out. I don't know what else to do. I've apologized a million times. I've begged him. I've done everything I can think of to try and fix this, but it's like he's already made up his mind. I just need help. How do I get through to him? How do I fix this before it's too late? I can't lose him. Please, I need advice. Update. Hey Reddit. So it's been a while. Honestly, I felt pretty ashamed to update for a while because of how much I got bashed and criticized on here the last time I posted. I think a lot of people saw my post on the Am I the Devil forum, and, well, the mockery just kept coming. It was a lot to handle, and I didn't want to face it. But after everything that's happened, and with a few DMs asking for updates, I've decided it's time to stop putting it off and just update once and for all. So, the big news. What I guess everyone was expecting but I wasn't ready for, I got served. My husband isn't reconciling. He's not changing his mind. He's done. He's really done. No couples counseling, no therapy, no working through it. He says he just wants me out of his life at this point, and I'm crushed. I'm absolutely crushed. I thought there was still a chance, that maybe I could fix it, that maybe he'd come around, but he hasn't. Every time I try to apologize, every time I try to talk to him, he shuts me out. And now, the papers are in my hands. There's no turning back. I feel like my world is falling apart. I can't even describe how much this hurts. I miss him so much, and all I can think about is how I messed everything up, how I pushed him to this point. I'm constantly in tears. I haven't been this low in forever. And I hate it. I hate myself for getting to this point. I've spent the last few weeks just wallowing in this depression, missing him like crazy, feeling completely lost and empty. I haven't worked in years, and now I'm being thrown into this overwhelming reality where I'm supposed to dust off my CV and get a job. Like, how do I even begin? The job market is oversaturated. I haven't worked in so long, and now I'm supposed to figure all of this out on my own. How? How do I even start? I don't know if I can. The weight of everything is crushing me. I've lost support from everyone. Everyone is on his side, and they keep telling me I deserve this, that I brought it on myself. And I know they're right. I don't blame them, but that doesn't make it any easier. I feel like I've lost everything. I've lost him. I've lost the support of my friends and family. I've lost my confidence, my sense of stability. I'm just lost. I've been coping in unhealthy ways. I've been binge eating, and I've gained like 50 pounds. I can't stop. I don't even care anymore. I've been drinking too, and I'm teetering on the edge of alcoholism. I'm trying not to go too far down that path, but at this point, I feel like I'm losing control of everything. I'm miserable. I feel so worthless. I know I've messed up beyond repair, but I'm still clinging to the hope that maybe, just maybe, there's a chance I can fix this, that I can somehow make him see that I'm sorry, that I want to change. But every time I try, he just pushes me further away. I don't know what to do anymore. How do I rebuild when everything I had is gone? How do I get back to a place where I can be okay again? I don't want to lose myself in this sadness. I just feel like I'm drowning and there's no way out. How do I move forward when all I want is to go back to the way things were? How do I move forward when all I want is to go back to the way things were? I don't even know where to start. I feel like I've completely shattered everything I had with Richard, everything we built. Every time I think about the memories, the good times we had, it just reminds me of how far I've fallen. I used to be so sure of everything, of us, of what I wanted in life. Now, I'm just floating, with no real direction. It's not even just about missing him. It's about losing myself too. I feel like I'm breaking apart, trying to put together pieces of the person I was before all this happened. The self-confidence I had is gone, replaced by constant self-doubt. I've let so many things slip through my fingers. The trust we had, the respect, it's all gone. And no matter how many times I say I'm sorry or I'll do better, it feels like it's too late. I feel like I've lost my sense of self-worth. I keep thinking about how I've hurt him, how I've pushed him away, and it's like a constant weight on my chest. The guilt, the shame, it's overwhelming. It's hard to breathe sometimes, let alone think about what comes next. How do I get past this? How do I make up for the hurt I caused when he's so done with me? And I've tried everything to make him understand how sorry I am, but nothing seems to make a difference. I've begged. I've pleaded. I've tried to change, but he's just moved on. And it hurts more than I can even express. I miss the life we had, the simple moments we shared. I miss being his priority, his love, and I'm desperate to make it right. But I don't know how. I feel like I've lost my purpose. I used to feel so secure with him. Now I'm left with this uncertainty, this fear of what's to come. Everyone around me keeps telling me to move on, that he's not coming back, but I can't seem to accept that. The thought of never having him in my life again is unbearable. But then, there's the reality that I might have already destroyed everything. I don't know how to start over. I'm just so scared. Scared of what's next. Scared that I've ruined everything beyond repair. But mostly I'm scared of being alone. I can't stand the thought of living without him, and the idea of trying to find a way back feels impossible. So how do I pick up the pieces and move forward, when all I want is to go back and fix what I broke? I don't have the answers, and I feel like I'm drowning in this uncertainty. But all I can do right now is try, even though I'm not sure where to begin. I just want to find a way to fix it, even if I know deep down that it might be too late. Update. Hey Reddit, it's been a while, hasn't it? I've been putting this off for so long, and honestly, it's because I feel humiliated and ashamed. But here I am, ready to give the update I know some of you have been waiting for. I wish I could say things have turned around, that the divorce never went through, that we're happier and stronger than ever, but that would be a lie. A big, fat, painful lie. The truth? I'm miserable. Completely and utterly miserable. The divorce? Finalized. It didn't take long. A few court dates, some papers signed, and that was it. Everything we built, everything I thought I had, gone in an instant, and I got nothing, which honestly is fair. It's not like I had any leg to stand on. I destroyed what we had, and he made sure I wouldn't benefit from it. It's over. My marriage, my life as I knew it, the future I thought we'd share. And now I'm left with this, a shell of a life, a version of myself I don't even recognize. I've gained over 150 pounds since all this started. I binge eat to cope, to fill this empty, aching void inside me. Junk food is cheap, and for a fleeting moment, it makes me feel better. But then I see myself in the mirror, and I hate what I've become. I'm obese, unhealthy, and frankly disgusting. The drinking doesn't help, but it's all I have left. I started with just a glass here and there to take the edge off, to dull the overwhelming pain. Now, it's a full-blown problem. I drink every day, and if I'm not drunk, I'm thinking about getting drunk. It's the only way I can numb the constant, crushing weight of my reality. And work? Don't even get me started. I haven't been able to hold down a job since the divorce. A month ago, I got fired from the last position I managed to scrape together. I was living paycheck to paycheck before that, so you can imagine what losing that paycheck did to me. Now, I'm completely broke. I can't afford rent, I can't afford therapy, and I'm barely scraping by for food. Oh, and did I mention? I'm homeless. My parents tried to support me for a while, but it didn't last. We had a huge argument. Honestly, I can't even remember what it was about, and they kicked me out. I've been on the streets since, trying to survive. I spend what little money I can scrape together on alcohol and the cheapest food I can find. I know it's self-destructive. I know I should be doing better, trying harder, but I don't have the strength. And then there's Richard, my ex-husband. Of course he's thriving. Why wouldn't he be? He's happy, stable, successful, the exact opposite of me. I've seen him on social media a few times, smiling, surrounded by people who love and support him. It's like I never even existed in his world. Meanwhile, I can't go a single day without thinking about him. I know I did this to myself. Every bad decision, every selfish action, it all led me here. I'm the only one to blame, and trust me, I do blame myself. But that doesn't make it any easier to live with. It doesn't make the nights any less lonely or the days any less hopeless. I'm the architect of my own downfall, and I don't even know why I'm admitting all this on here. Maybe I just need someone to talk to, someone to hear me. Since therapy is out of the question, I guess Reddit is the best I can do. So yeah, there's your update. I'm miserable. I'm a broken, overweight, homeless alcoholic who ruined her own life. If there's a rock bottom, I've hit it, and I've probably kept digging. I wish I had some inspiring message to leave you with, some glimmer of hope, but I don't. This is just my reality now.
I messed up. I slept with my coworkers, so my husband snatched everything I had. I need your help, you guys. I did something terrible and I regret it, but I couldn't stop back then. And now everything I have is gone. My husband, my family, my friends, and even the things he had gotten me. I don't know what went wrong or how it went wrong, but it all started from the urges. Ladies, if you want to keep your man in your life forever, never listen to those urges thinking he'll never find out. He will. Your man will find out just like mine did. And do you know what he did after he found out? He kicked me to the curb with nothing to my name. If I hadn't listened to those urges, I would still have my husband and all I had to my name. I hadn't listened, and now I'm remembering I feel so pissed at myself. But my husband wasn't completely innocent in all this. He had been the catalyst that had caused everything that I was paying for. Yes, he was always working. I get the work part. I mean, I was working too, but I still made time for him, but he never reciprocated from his end. It was always one meeting after another, and he slept at his office a lot. That would make any sane woman think her husband was avoiding her because he didn't love her anymore. At one point, I had even thought he was cheating on me, that there was one woman in his office that he was screwing, that this was possibly why he couldn't stay away from the office. I confronted him about it, and he had called me delusional, that if he was screwing another woman, he wouldn't be coming home. But he wasn't coming home, and that was the problem. That was what made me mad, and maybe subconsciously I retaliated. I didn't mean to be unfaithful to my husband, but they were just really hot men everywhere around me, and I had the urges my husband couldn't satisfy because he was always holed up at work. Let me explain to you. I worked at a sports agency, so I was surrounded by guys. I didn't have a problem with it because I always liked to be one of the bros, so I hung out with them. Most of my friends growing up had been guys, including my husband. I had always been the cool chick when I hung around. They saw me like a bro. So my husband had no qualms about me working for a sports agency, hanging around me, and the likes. I hadn't even found any of my coworkers attractive. I was in love with my husband. He had been my friend since the beginning of high school and then on to college and marriage. I only had eyes for him until temptation came knocking in the form of the new coworkers that transferred to our agency recently. My name is Laura, and I'm 28 years old. My husband's name is Parker, and he's 28 years old. We had known each other since high school. He had been the new transfer student that had been isolated, so I took him into my group. My group back then had consisted of the two boys that I had known since kindergarten, my playmates, the children of the women in my mother's circle. So with my husband in the circle, we became four. They had called us the Weird Fours because we had been unhinged. We didn't care. We just lived the way we wanted to. My parents had thought I wasn't going to marry with all the tomboy things I did and how I knew little to none about being a girl. This wasn't a fairy tale. It was truly how I had lived my life, and they had been chewing me out. My mother even sat me down one day before I moved to college and told me she was cool with it if I was on the pride spectrum. It had laughed my ass off. Fast forward 2 years later, and I was dating my husband, and my mother couldn't be more happier and proud. Not because I was dating my husband, but because I had managed to snag a man, even if he and I had been best buds since high school. Anyway, my husband and I started dating in our second year of college, and although I still had other friends, he didn't mind it. We hung out together. I hung out with him and his guys, and he hung out with me and my guys. He never showed any indication that he was jealous about me spending too much time with guys. Even my friends had said it was weird the way he was cool with me hanging out with them. I can recall one time when we were hanging out, that is, me and my guys and my husband, and someone brought up a game of spin the bottle. The bottle landed on me and one of my buddies, and I was dared to give him a lap dance. My husband hadn't even flinched an inch. Can you guys imagine that? His girlfriend was twirling on another man's lap and he hadn't said anything. And I had done the dare on purpose. I wanted to see if he would go all alpha male on me and my friends and order no one to touch his girl, but my husband, boyfriend then, had stayed out. After the truth or dare game, one of my friends walked up to me and said he would have never allowed me to twerk on another man's lap if I was his. I'm just trying to give you instances of how cool my husband was with me hanging out with the male gender. Well, I hadn't confronted him about it because if he had a problem with it, then I wouldn't be hanging out with the people that truly got me. So we dated and then got married 2 years after college. Yeah, we had decided to be superstitious and get married 2 years after, because we had started dating 2 years into college. We also got married on the same date he had asked me to be his girlfriend. My husband's parents were rich, but he hadn't leaned on their money after college. He had formed his own startup cryptocurrency and digital assets company, and in 2 years it had become big, so he had wooed me with gifts. My husband had bought me properties because he believed in real estate investment. He took me out and bathed me in luxury. He had even told me to quit working, but I hadn't because I liked working and I liked what I did, so he hadn't given me any hassle about quitting. My husband had been Jay, but then he began traveling and overworking himself because he was trying to build up branches of his company in other parts of the world. So as a result of this, I hardly saw him again. At first, I had been cool with it because I'd had disturbing clients messing up with my mind, and I didn't really have the time to notice his dwindling absence. I made no fuss about it, but then my work cooled down, and I started coming home to an empty house. One day turned to 2, and then turned to a week, and eventually became a month. My husband only came home for a fresh change of clothes, or sometimes he would send his secretary and I didn't get to see him. I had gone to confront him once, and that day was one I would never forget. I think it was that day that made me want to retaliate subconsciously. That day, I had decided I would surprise my husband at work in the afternoon. I was on the 1-week leave my agency granted to us tri-monthly, so I was very lonely with only my husband breezing in and out of the house in the early mornings. My friends were now busy individuals and didn't have the time to meet up with me over drinks, so I decided I was going to seek my husband's company by force. I had dressed my absolute best that day and cooked his favorite meal. I had everything tabled down to perfection. I hadn't known it would come back to bite me in the ass. When I had gotten there, I had let myself into his office even after his secretary had told me not to. That he was in an important meeting, mind you, and I was wearing the skimpiest piece of clothing I owned, which came in the form of a gown. I knew I looked hot. I walked in and found him in a meeting with a group of 5 guys and 2 women. One of the women had been talking and paused when she saw me walking. Then all 8 heads turned to look at me with the secretary rushing in out of me. I'm telling you, it was something straight out of a romance novel. If I hadn't been there live and conscious, I would have thought of what cheesy romantic cliché that scenario was. But it was anything but romantic. My husband looked me in the eye and told me to get out. A whole me? His wife. How dare he have such audacity? But once again, I bottled it up and followed his secretary out. After about 30 minutes later, his secretary told me I could go into his office, and once I stepped into his office, my husband lost it on me. Like literally began raising his voice and telling me how he thought I had common sense. This is something he had never done before in his entire life. My husband raised his voice and told me bad words. Up till now, I still can't believe that had happened. Like I had said before, my husband had always been isolated. He was shy and didn't like to talk much right from high school, but he said what needed to be said when necessary and had this aura that made people notice him. Or maybe it was just because he looked rich. Anyway, my husband told me the advice of my life that day in his office. According to him, he only married me because it was convenient. He had known me, and I was available to him, so the right thing to do was marry me. He had said he definitely hadn't married me because of my looks, but because I was cool and, in his own words, one of the guys. I had gone home crying that night because I had loved him, and at that point I still did. So I guess I decided to do something in retaliation subconsciously. I say subconsciously because messing with my coworkers hadn't been something I had planned out to do. Believe it or not, after my husband told me all those things, I still greeted him good morning and made his coffee just the way he liked it when he breezed in from work in the mornings. So you see, guys, I hadn't truly meant to cheat, but then these two new guys had showed up at work, and I was gone. I know what you must be thinking. How had I messed with two guys at the same time at my workplace? How had I managed to operate that successfully? Well, I thought I had managed, but I had never been more wrong. This was the climax point of my marriage crashing. These two hot, beautiful, ethereal men. No, I'm not exaggerating at their gorgeousness, and yes, I know at that point I had a husband, so I wasn't supposed to be thinking of messing around with another man, my coworker for that matter. Trust me, I had all the voices in my head before I started messing with them. I still couldn't be stopped. What was bound to happen, happened. And it began from compliments. The little things my husband missed. They made me feel like a girl. I wasn't just one of the guys, like my husband had put it. It was new. How I had managed to keep them apart? They worked in different departments, so they had no idea I was seeing both of them. When the flirtations had started, I had promised myself I would put a stop to it after a day or two. But a day or two led to 1 week, and I began loving the attention. Then, when it began to look very risky, I promised myself that I would stop the fling with one and focus on only one. I couldn't. I just couldn't. But I had loved the attention a little too much. I had flirted like never before, and I thought if I was a little careful, no one would find out. Not my husband, not the two men, and not my friends. I had told myself I could be careful. In fact, I was careful. I was extra careful. I didn't have anything to fear from my husband's side from the beginning of the fling, since he was always traveling and spending his nights and days in the office a bit too much. Plus, ever since we had that fight, we hadn't had an actual conversation. He seemed to be avoiding me, so I did the same. The only thing I had to be careful about was keeping the two men from finding out about each other and keeping my friends from finding out that I was having an affair. And it had gone well. When I went on a date with one, the other one thought I was sleeping or occupied with work and vice versa. The power had been so thrilling, controlling to men at my fingertips, and they saw to my every need. Spending the night with them was magical. Separately, of course, and my husband never knew. He hadn't even cared to know if I was alive or something. No text from him, no calls, just the occasional breeze in and breeze out on special mornings. That was how it was, and I enjoyed every bit of it. Until I got caught in a very big and dangerous spider web. My husband came back. Yes, the traveling stopped. Apparently, he had achieved the opening of his company in the country he wanted, so there was no more hectic work that was keeping him from coming home. So he began coming home in the night, and I was supposed to end all my shenanigans I had with my coworkers. I was supposed to be the smart one, but I had decided to be utterly foolish. I still kept on with my affairs, but this time I couldn't sleep over at either of their houses or stay past the usual working hours. Why, you may ask? Well, my husband finally remembered that he had a wife. He started checking up on me and demanding to know why I was out late after my usual working hours. So I didn't have the freedom to do what I wanted to do. From checking up on me, my husband apologized and became caring once more. You guys recall how I had started this story saying I had loved my husband so much and regretted my actions? Yeah, this was why. Because after everything, he had apologized and I had run back to him. The day my husband took me out to dinner and apologized, I had dropped the affairs like someone holding a hot pot would drop without caution. I hadn't paid any mind to the fact that dropping the affairs so suddenly would come back to bite me in the ass, but my husband finally loved me again and wanted me, so I had to come back to him. That day at the restaurant, after I had sent the text to both of my coworkers, the calls and texts started up almost immediately. My husband kept on asking me what was wrong so many times that I had to switch off my phone. After the dinner, we cruised around the city of Pittsburgh and got ice cream and laughed and played like we had never done before. I had to hand it to my husband. The man sure did know how to make a lady feel special. That was all I had felt that night. Special. This was before the havoc I had wreaked came crashing down to my face. 2 weeks later, I found out that the two men I had been messing with behind their backs were cousins. Of all my dumb fate, they had to be cousins. And I had found out the hard way through blackmail. Yes, the two men I had been seeing on the side found out I had played them and decided to make money out of me. Let me call their names because I have nothing left to lose. Their names had been Peter and Jack. I hadn't known their surnames. Maybe if I did, I wouldn't have put myself in the mess I created. So John decided to text me a picture of me and Jack with the tag, "Hope you had fun with my cousin." This was when I knew I had screwed up, because after this, there came a flood of receipts. Pictures of me hanging out with both of them individually. Pictures of me texting them and leading them on individually. I mean, everything was just so incriminating, and I was disgusted with myself that I had let myself become so unhinged when I was literally married. Their first bargaining price was $50,000. Since I was in my husband's good book, I lied about what I needed money for, and he gave it to me. I had lied on my brother's head. I had told my husband that the money was for tuition fees for my brother in college. Getting that money out of him had been easy. But with time, the requests from my coworkers became too much that I started pawning off my expensive jewelries and diminishing my savings because I couldn't as well ask my husband for $150,000 without him becoming suspicious that something was up. When I couldn't meet the cousins' demands, they became physical, threatening to expose me to my husband and HR about how I'd had an affair at work with coworkers. Then once they were done getting me fired, they would move to my husband and get me divorced. I was out of money and had no idea what to do, so I began borrowing from my friends with the promise to pay back. I had tried to sell one of the properties my husband had got me, but I needed his signature to sell it, so that option was out of the bag. I was swimming in debt, confused and panicky, even contemplating running away from Pittsburgh to maybe Chicago and changing my name and hair color. But everything came to light. 3 months after keeping up with the cousin blackmailers and failing towards the last bargain, I was worrying away at home when my husband barged in from work and asked me who Peter was and what was my relationship with him. You guys needed to see the way my eyes widened in fear because it was over for me. My husband's face was livid with anger, and when I had nothing to say, he flung an envelope towards me, and inside were receipts to attest to the fact that I'd had an affair. The next morning, my husband came back and flung divorce papers at me, telling me I needed to sign them before he changed his mind and did something drastic. He left before I could answer him. I didn't have the nerve to show up to work, but I did, and then found out that those two evildoers had been transferred. They had just up and left after wrecking my life and making me a serious debtor. My friends wouldn't ask me if the money they had borrowed me so soon, but I knew I had to start paying up before they start asking to avoid them being privy to my scandal. I came back home from work that day and found my suitcases on the curb with my husband outside and waiting for me. He snatched the keys to my car the second I came down from the car and asked for the divorce papers. I tried begging and pleading that we could sort this out, and it was just a small misunderstanding between us. Then I made the mistake of opening my mouth to say that having an affair had partly been his fault. My husband lost it again for the second time in our 2 years of marriage. He told me things I had been better off not hearing, and this fueled my anger even more. According to him, he would never had married me because there was absolutely nothing appealing to him about me. He had just married me because he thought I was sensible. Basically, it was a repeat of all the things he said that night in his office, but this time with more anger. I threw the divorce papers in his face and marched away. Then I dared to do something I would have never thought of doing. I took my husband to court over settlement of property. Another mistake I had made. My husband finished me in court and then proceeded to make sure I got fired from my workplace. I had walked into work, and the whispers told me I was no longer welcome before HR did. My husband had exposed my affair to my colleagues about how I had been fraternizing with my co-workers, which was against work policy, and thanks to my ex-husband, they had enough evidence that I had messed with my co-workers. My ex-husband dusted me in court, and I had no claim to all the properties, so I had no money, nothing to my name. After the court issue, I had gotten an invite to one of my friends' anniversary dinner. It was a setup to diminish my image in front of my friends. My ex-husband wasted no time in saying how all the money they had borrowed me had gone into feeding my lovers. I was humiliated and embarrassed in front of everyone. I lost everything I owned. My savings had gone into feeding those blackmailers. All the property I thought I had were not mine. My jewelries had already been pawned, and my friends wanted nothing to do with me. Did I still love my ex-husband at that point? I did, and if I hadn't fallen for temptation, my life would still be going smoothly, and I wouldn't have been trying to pay up debts. I couldn't ask my parents for money because they lived on a farm in Wisconsin and considered themselves done with me when they saw me through college. My junior brother was still in college, so he was of no help to me. So I ran away. Yes, I'm not going to expose where I am, but I changed my hair, of course. But I have learned my lesson, and I hope you learned something from my experience. Do you guys think my husband did me dirty by telling me all those things? Do you think they were true, or he was just saying those words in anger? Well, I would never know, but I would like to read you all's thoughts on it. Bye, Reddit.